This is Moor Studios horror movie production part 2. This is the website where you could find it, or you could look up Moor Studios on the internet. This is the fair use statement. Okay, I'm going to run through some of the stuff we saw in the first video. You should go back and see it if you have questions. But again, this is one of the pictures from the Moor Studios, and I identified this person as Bela Lugosi. What we're going to look at a little bit, though, is this is Bela Lugosi, Ralph Wright, with a person who I've identified as probably his wife. But notice they have their hands on this young man here, and I'm not 100% clear who he is, other than they have a very close relationship, and it could be his son. All right, so this is Ralph Wright, the artist, and he is Bela Lugosi, who played Dracula. This person here, Doug Lowe, has no business being in this picture with Bela Lugosi at this point, because he turns out to be Ed Wood. Nobby Clark, as I identified, is Colin Clive. Colin Clive played Dr. Frankenstein, not the monster. Gentleman with the Arrow is Gary, who was Peter Cushing. Hitching is makeup artist Jack P. Pierce. Taking a look. All right. Reg Bartlett was initially Lewis Hayward from Son of Dr. Jekyll, and then becomes Spencer Tracy. And we have a good idea he's Spencer Tracy because Pete Griffiths here turns out to be Norman Torrig, who did direct Spencer Tracy in Boys Town. So again, if you notice, there is a close relationship here, and it's possible that Norman Torrig is the son of Bela Lugosi and Lillian Arch. All right, we saw this the last one. You can look this one up. We want to know who these two guys are, and here are the faces put together. Boris Karloff turns out to be a man named Alex Oxley over here. And here he is drawing some rabbit pictures as an illustrator, unless, of course, he's just set up to pose here, which is a possibility. He is in very, very good condition. And my favorite slide, Joe Lancaster, again an artist at Moor Studios, who turned out to be the Bride of Frankenstein. I love this one. And, sorry, I got to come back. Look how great Boris Karloff is there. And here is Joe Lancaster's father, who Joe Lancaster's Elsie Lanchester, who turns out to be Basil Rathbone. Here they are in The Son of Frankenstein. This is Todd Browning in the picture. Boris Karloff, Todd Browning. This was in the last video. Here's Boris Karloff again. Robert Siodmak, his brother Kurt Siodmak, who is a screenwriter. Douglas Fairbanks here, standing underneath Todd Browning, and in the background. By the way, I have most of these people for a future video. Henry Reed, who is Paul Hon Reed from Casablanca. Victor Laszlo. All right, here's where we were in the last video. What about Peter Lorre? I have Peter Lorre, and I also have the gentleman who played the original Wolfman, Lon Chaney Jr. Lon Chaney Jr. I'll do another time, but this is Peter Lorre, and for Peter Lorre you have to go to Disney Studios, and Peter Lorre appears to be a gentleman named Ted Sears who worked for Disney Studios, and turns up in some other staged event, which I'll do a video at a later time. So again, the whole thing with, here's Bela Lugosi getting a nice morphine injection from some very studly looking medical type person, and it's the whole story of Bela Lugosi with Ed Wood, and get me the needle, get me the needle. My belief is that this gentleman here is Ben Gazzara. Ben Gazzara, actor. You can look up who he is. Can I prove it? I think it's a pretty good likeness. It looks like him. Skin color, shape of the face, shape of the nose, ear not so far off. So that's my belief, is this is Ben Gazzara. Exactly whose kid he is, I'm not sure, or who he belongs to, but let's move on. So this is very funny. So here's Mr. Ralph Wright, and again, here's Ed Wood in here. Ralph Wright is Bela Lugosi, and supposedly he dies, lonely old heroin or morphine addict. And last movies are made by this gentleman, Mr. Ed Wood. But I've identified Ralph Wright as Bela Lugosi, who plays Dracula. This is Ralph Wright as an old man, and he won a Oscar for Winnie the Pooh. So here he is, alive and well, not injecting morphine, and happily sitting at his desk drawing cartoons. This is Ralph Wright. He is Bela Lugosi, and he won a Oscar for Winnie the Pooh. And what makes it even better is if you look up Ralph Wright, besides winning the Oscar for Winnie the Pooh, he also was the original voice for Eeyore. And there is Eeyore, and you can look up which movie Ralph Wright was in, where he was the voice of Eeyore. I unfortunately don't think I have it up here. So that's very, very cool. And, I'm sorry to do this to the fans of horror films, but this is just too funny. Here's Alex Oxley. This is Frankenstein. He's drawing rabbit cartoons. Here's Ralph Wright. He's Bela Lugosi and Dracula drawing cartoons. And forgive me, but this is Frankenstein's monster drawing cartoons. This is Dracula drawing cartoons. And this is the bottom line. They use the illustrators in the films. They didn't have to go to outside sources. Whoever was there doing the cartoons for this movie studio, they used as artistes, as actors. So there's a bunch of people I look for. There's a guy named Lionel Atwill who I haven't had a chance to look for, who's probably going to turn up. And he played in a bunch of movies, including the original Frankenstein movie. But this guy I found, and he's an actor named Ernst Thesiger, who played Dr. Septimus Pretorius in Bride of Frankenstein. And I found really only one picture of him, and they don't name the person here, but I've blown him up over here, and I believe this is him. How do I know that? Well, if you look standing above him, this gentleman I identified as Nobby Clark. I forget his first real name, and he is Colin Clive. So what you have here is Colin Clive, who is Dr. Frankenstein in the original, and here in this is Bride of Frankenstein. Here's Ernst Thesiger in the same film, and they've aged. This is obviously a much older picture than this one, but here they are. They are much younger. They're in the same photograph here. They're in the same photograph here, and these are the same two people. I don't know the name of this person. I could not find it. I am still working on this gentleman here, and I forget his name at this particular moment. But you could see they're working on a storyboard here, and they're showing the cartoons, but they don't reveal all the horror movies they made. Yeah, I didn't really want to put this in with the horror stars, but I don't know where else I'm going to wind up putting it, but this is a guy named Ken Hardy who worked at Moor Studios. There's a couple pictures of him. This one was the easiest to figure out. Here he's doing some work at the desk. And this one's just obvious. I mean, it was Joe Flynn, who plays Captain Binghamton in McHale's Navy. It was great seeing it. And this one was about as easy to pick out as picking out Bela Lugosi. But he really wouldn't fit in anywhere else. I put him in here at this point. Okay, we're at a guy named Ted Percival, who is sandwiched right here between Todd Browning, the great director of Freaks, and Boris Karloff. And he turns out to be a fairly interesting character